organization. So, without any further ado, I'd like to give you Kalin and Yoni. Color My World Project.
How we feeling today, guys?
Is this one? No.
All right, technical difficult. We'll just switch off. All right, my name is Yoni, and this is my partner, Kalin. We are both high school seniors from Washington, D.C., and we are here to talk to you about how our journey began. All right, how many of you guys like to party? Raise your hands.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Beautiful. That's what I thought. And how many of us like to play sports, like music, concerts, right? Yeah. So, to let you know, I just had a party last night. I was up very late. And I'm telling you this because you do not have to give up partying and sports to make a difference. You know, I'm playing sports still. I have a lot of friends, well, I think I do. And I'm able to have fun. But at the same time, when the lights go on in the party, when the music stops, for me, that's when I have to think about what else is there, what else can I do? Because for me, I felt empty. And yes, I played sports, I got a little tired, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to make a mark in the community. So when you start to think about ideas, I thought, you know, there's cancer, there's poverty, there's violence in the world. There's so many huge problems that we see around us. And it's overwhelming, it's paralyzing. For a while, I felt, you know, I can't do this, I gotta step back and just let things happen. But you know what? I started to think about small ideas. Often we fail to look at something right in front of us and we say, we have to be the next Steve Jobs. We have to be the next Bill Gates. I need an idea that will save poverty and fix violence in the world. But something that I failed to see was simply right in front of me. I was sitting at an Outback Steakhouse one night, right after Thanksgiving dinner. Who loves Outback Steakhouse? Great steak. Yep. So the steak is pretty decent, but they have some great coloring utensils, and they hand out coloring materials for us and for my little cousins. Being 17, I'm like, you know, I'm not an avid colorer, but I took advantage of the crayons. I played with them a little bit, but I barely used them. And as distracting as kids are, they don't necessarily use these crayons to the full extent. And after my dinner, unfortunately, I saw my waitress pick up these crayons and throw them in the trash. Now, they were 9 crayons that were completely thrown out. And these crayons were barely even touched. And this, to me, seemed stupid and seemed like a problem that just shouldn't be happening. Often it's easy to, you know, turn your back and say, okay, this is a problem. I don't necessarily feel like I can deal with it, or it's unfortunate, and I hope somebody else can handle it. In this case, something as simple as collecting these crayons could be doable and was feasible, and I thought, why not talk to the servers? And unfortunately, what I found out was, in all these family-style restaurants, CPK, Outback Steakhouse, TGI Fridays, they throw out these crayons because of the touch table policy. Anything that touches the table has to be thrown out. And of course, silverware doesn't count in that, but coasters, napkins, crayons. And if you think about how many restaurants there are, at least 100,000 family-style restaurants, and most of them give out crayons. Now that's millions of crayons being thrown out each year. If we can take those crayons, and I know they're simple, crayons are crayons, but if we could take those and repurpose them, give them to schools, shelters, places that can't afford them, imagine the impact that we can make. So that's how the Color My World project really started.
All right, this one's working. All right, so what Yoni was talking about is something that we like to think about as the art of perception. Now, the art of perception is looking at things not just for what they are, but for what they can be. And so we look at a crayon, and we don't just see a colored stick of wax. We see an opportunity to give children in our community who don't have the opportunity for artistic expression crayons and materials so that they really can have that opportunity. So that's something that we have always liked and something that we're really passionate about, so it's just something to think about. So when we started, we had one restaurant. We started with an Outback Steakhouse in Arlington, Virginia. I'm from Arlington, Northern Virginia. And we didn't really know if it would be effective or not. We weren't sure if it would work. But the important thing is that you jump in and you try it, and that's what we did. And we weren't going to let our inhibitions stop us from going out and doing it in the first place. So we started with one restaurant, and after 2 months, we went back and we collected the crayons that would have been thrown out, and we had 755 crayons in just those 2 months from one restaurant. From right then, we knew.
And they were clean. They were really
very
nice.
Yeah. And most of the time when we get crayons, they're barely used. You might have maybe half a centimeter at the top, off the top at most. So when we got there, there's 755 crayons, we were like, yes, this is gonna be awesome. So we knew our idea was in business. And from there, we thought about, okay, where can we go from here? We need to think about expanding. And so we set out a 6-month timeline for ourselves, and we set up a goal. Okay, we're going to get 4 more restaurants in the next 2 months. And so we set out to pitch those restaurants and to get them on board and bring them on board. And after 2 months, we actually had 5 more restaurants. And so as you build, it actually gets easier and easier.
All right, hold on, pause there. So we talked to you a little bit. I'm sure you guys are getting a little restless. How many of you actually have an idea of what we do now? I'm curious. Raise your hand. I'll pick on somebody random. Yes, in the front table. What do you think Color My World does?
You guys take the crayons that are being wasted and thrown away and you give them back
Hold
to
on.
the community.
You're on the spot.
You guys take the crayons that were being thrown away and wasted and you give them back to the community, to those that are less fortunate and don't have the opportunity to express themselves.
That's exactly right.
And why, and who else wants to volunteer? Why do you think this is important? A lot of us, I'm sure, have crayons. They're not the most significant. We're not curing cancer. But what's important about taking these crayons? You know, what can we do with this? Yes, hold on, run.
Because some kids don't have the ability, or they don't have the materials to express themselves and become artistic or to show their creative side. The most important thing is to be able to express yourself. So you're giving those kids the chance to do that.
All right. So there you go. I'm glad we're able to touch on that a little bit. Often people look at me, you know, I play lacrosse, I play soccer, I'm not the artistic type, I'm pretty terrible at art actually. And they're like, what do you like about crayons? And going back to the art of perception, it's not the fact that they're crayons. They can be plastic utensils, they can be napkins. The fact is, our community, our society is so used to throwing out things and creating new things. But instead we have simple things. Often, when you go to a hotel, they give new shampoo and new lotion every single day. They just throw those out. So an idea right there, you can collect lotion, shampoos, pens and pads and paper. They throw those all out because they can afford to just keep buying. So what I think is important is we devise a strategy, we take advantage of resources. And instead of buying new things, we can use what we already have and redistribute them to places and schools that need them and that can't afford them.
All right, so let me break down for you everything that we do from the outside to the inside. So externally, we collect the crayons from restaurants and we pick the crayons up. We have a bin that we just put in the restaurant kitchen. They can throw the crayons in there. And we'll go and we'll pick the crayons up every 1 or 2 months set. And we have a regional director for every region that we're in, whether it's a city or a state if we don't have many restaurants in that state. And then we have representatives who are in charge of, say, 3 restaurants. And it's their responsibility to go and pick up from those restaurants every 1 or 2 months. And it depends on the restaurant. Some you might only have 200 crayons in 2 months, others might have 3,000 in 1 month. It really varies. So that's their responsibility. And then when we have the crayons, one thing that we thought about in the beginning was, okay, well, these are from restaurants. The reason they're throwing them out is because they don't have to deal with the sanitation issue. They've been used already. So what we do is we've devised a system where we sanitize them with a UV wand. The same type of UV light that they use in hospitals to clean hospital equipment.
The moral of the story is it cleans crayons pretty well.
Yeah.
So that's just a little tip that we give people because people get worried, you know, mothers.
Yeah, and that's something that we're just thinking about looking forward. So then, once we have the crayons, we were thinking about, okay, well, we're gonna donate them to the schools, and yeah, that'll make a good difference. It'll give them artistic opportunity. But we thought, well, maybe we can take a step further. And so now, often when we go and we donate to the schools, we go and we color with the kids, and we have that personal interaction, and we teach them about where the crayons come from, why we're repurposing them, that we're reducing the waste, and that we're reusing resources. And we teach them about recycling. We give them a mini eco lesson, like why is recycling important? Does anybody know what recycling is? And hopefully they will take that home to their families, and that gives them the mindset as the next generation to be ecologically friendly going forward.
I don't know if you guys have heard of the Facebook, but the Facebook and the Twitter have been extremely helpful in expanding and growing partners. So yeah, we started with one restaurant, and the two of us, we have big voices, but not necessarily enough to carry out through different states. What we did is we put together a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and started tweeting, started collecting, putting up pictures, and built a small website where we can show people what we're doing. The important thing is it doesn't have to be a beautifully designed, perfect website, but at least you're showing people so they can go on and research, all right, Color My World, where can I find this, and how do I know who they are and what they do? And that's one of the key things, is creating a base so people can know how to reach out to you and how to partner with you. Now, another great thing about having an organization is really the most fun thing for me is partnering with people. So going to conferences like this with committed youth like you guys is fun. I get to meet new kids, but also I get new ideas. For a while, I thought this project could be run by 2-3 people. But it turns out it's growing bigger than us. Right now, we're 34 restaurants in 9 states, and we're just constantly expanding. So it's getting pretty difficult.
And 16 team members.
And 16 team members. But with more team members, we bring on more ideas. So we brought on my friend Makarios, for example, and he decided, why not create a coloring book? So now we have a coloring book that kids can learn about recycling, but also draw and use their crayons. Little ideas like this build on. And another thing that's been helpful is going to conferences like these, but also talking to the organizers, getting to know some of the people, and getting their business cards. And once you get those business cards, start to think about, all right, who is this person? How can they connect to my project, and how can they help me? So take a few notes. And while those business cards may be sitting in my bottom drawer for 6 months, I went back through them, and I checked to see, okay, how am I going to print these coloring books? I need to print 200 coloring books. Who do I contact? I check my card, and I reach out to a lady. I went to Youth Ventures Conference last year, and the lady happened to know the regional director of Staples. And this was exciting because Staples is pretty sick. And we're like, okay, let's take this resource, let's contact them, and let's see what we can do. And after 2 days, Staples regional manager wrote back immediately, said we're happy to do that, and he gave us $200 to print these coloring books. So these small partnerships start with the simple, hi, I'm Yoni, nice to meet you. I run this program and I like crayons. It doesn't have to be special. You don't have to be some really smart social person. Just introduce yourself, be nice, and get to know some people, because you never know who will come in handy in the end. Also, the advantages of these partnerships: keep a stash, so you know in 6 months or in 12 months, you'll never know how these people can help.
Yeah, and so building and networking, as you can see, is the fun part, as you can see. Now, networking is obviously the basis for expansion. And with expansion comes both difficulties and rewards. And obviously, going forward, like we've run into some problems. For example, we've run into having people expand to new areas and being able to keep in contact with them. Say someone in Washington State and Seattle. Just making sure, keeping in contact with them, making sure everything's going smoothly. When you're expanding, you're always going to run into roadblocks like that. But what's important is that you take the time to just stop and think about what's going on, and you take the time to figure out the new path you need to go on, because you really don't